everybody, welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making a recipe which a lot of people are making in this current climate, and that's banana bread. Now I do have a recipe and a YouTube video already with a banana bread with some nuts in, and I used roasted hazelnuts. But for this one it's just going to be bananas with a little hint of cinnamon and a little drop of lemon juice to keep the bananas a pale colour. So it's quite straightforward, and I'm using plain flour. You could, if you don't have plain flour and it's difficult to get in some places, you could use cake flour if you've got that. You could even use bread flour and it would work. And if the only flour you've got is self-raising flour, you can use that but leave out the baking powder that I'm going to put in. So I had my oven preheating at 180 Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, and I have greased a 2-pound loaf tin, and I've lined the bottom, and I'm actually going to coat the sides with flour as well, and then we'll go on to the ingredients. So the tin is coated with flour, and so for the ingredients I have 200 grams of plain flour, and as I said you could swap that out, and that works out at 1 1/3 cups. That's assuming a 250 milliliter cup measure and the flour has been scooped. If you were to simply spoon the flour into the cup measure, it would only weigh about 130 grams as opposed to 150 grams. So I'm going with the scooped method, 150 grams per cup, so this is 1 1/3 cups. I have 120 grams of unsalted butter, which is at room temperature, and that works out at 8.5 tablespoons. I have 120 grams of caster sugar, which is half a cup plus 1.5 tablespoons. I have 2 medium eggs, which would be large in the USA, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of salt. I also have 450 grams, which for me is 3 quite large bananas peeled. So the weight is, after they've been peeled, they weigh 450 grams, which is about a pound of bananas. And into that I've actually squeezed half a lemon. You don't have to do that, but I'm doing that to keep the colour basically. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mash those bananas to a pulp. Now you can do this by slicing the bananas and then using a fork to mash them, but I'm going to use my blender. And I've used the blender simply because it's so much quicker. If you have a few chunks of banana, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. This bread often has the little chunks. So that's a nice thick mixture, and I can see a few little chunks in there. That's perfect. So I've set that to one side, and the next thing I'm going to do is simply to mix the butter with the sugar. Now the butter's at room temperature, and I just want it to get mixed in. I'm not going to cream it to that fluffy stage. So that's quite a rough mixture. And then I'm going to put in my eggs and my salt, and I'm going to mix those in. So that's got the eggs mixed in, and then I'm going to put my banana in. And mix it in. And that's good enough. So the last thing to go in is the dry ingredients. So I'm going to put the cinnamon and the baking soda and the baking powder into the flour. Oops, I nearly tipped that in the wrong place. And I'm going to give that a stir around just to get those mixed in a little bit. And I'm going to add those in a bit at a time, maybe in 3 additions, and just mix until it's incorporated, no more. So that's quite nicely mixed in, and I'm just going to finish that off with a spatula, scraping down the sides and going to the bottom of the bowl to make sure I've got all the flour mixed in. And this is the stage at which, if you wanted to add 50 grams of hazelnuts or chopped hazelnuts or chopped walnuts or something like that, you could do that. So then I'm going to pour that into a 2-pound loaf tin. And this is the smaller of my 2-pound loaf tins. It's 21 centimetres by 9 centimetres. They all come in different sizes and they all claim to be 2 pounds or 900 grams or something. I'm just going to give that a shake to level it off a little bit. I'm going to put that into the oven and I'm going to bake that for about an hour until a skewer poked into the centre comes out clean. And when it does, I'll take it out and I'm going to let it cool down for about 15 minutes. Then I'll take it out of the tin and cool it completely. Then I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the banana bread for 60 minutes and I tested it with a skewer and it came out clean, but there was quite a lot of moisture still on the skewer. So I actually baked it for a further 10 minutes, but I covered the top with some aluminium foil so that it wouldn't go any darker. Then I took it out and I've let it cool down. It's still a little bit warm, but after about 15 minutes I took it out of the tin and put it onto a wire rack to cool down. And this is what it looks like. I've cut a couple of slices. So with all that liquid and the banana, it's going to be moist, which is what you want. So I'll just have a taste of it. It's very nice. Has a nice soft texture to it, and it has a subtle banana flavour, maybe just that hint of cinnamon, but it's very, very good indeed. And as I say, you can put some nuts in this if you want that additional texture. I don't need to. I think this would be ideal for breakfast, and I would even perhaps, once it's fully cooled down, spread a little bit of butter on it as well. I mean, it's moist enough it doesn't need it, but I like butter on things like this. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for this recipe, and I'll also put a link for it below the video, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.